Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Get ready for Talking Heads, the show where expert insights meet world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Brought to you by USA Global TV and Radio. Meet our distinguished presenters. From the great state of Texas, longevity expert, award-winning author, publisher, and distinguished Toastmaster, Red O'Loughlin. From London, England, soul heart awakener, novelist, vocal coach, and artist, Dr. Madeline Chan. Also from England, the Harley Street Stress Expert, therapist, ambassador for peace, and speaker, Carolyn Heward. And from Australia, ICF PCC credentialed coach, entrepreneur, and leadership coach, Mariska Dupria. Experience their expertise, connect with their wisdom, and transform your perspective. Watch Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. This video and its contents are the property of USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. Visit usaglobaltv.com for more details.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. My name is Caroline Heward and I'm known as the Harley Street Stress Expert. I'm an ambassador for peace and I'm also the resident therapist for USA Global TV and Radio. I'm an expert presenter on today's topic, which is part of the Mind and Body Connection series. And our topic today is the battle within, how internal conflicts shape our lives. And it is my pleasure to bring this topic to you because it will be something that many people will be struggling with as an internal conflict. So our show is Talking Heads and I'm an expert presenter. Let's begin. The battle within. Our internal conflict shapes our lives. It's a big topic and something that I felt very passionate about covering today because I felt that many people are conflicted in all sorts of ways and they don't really understand how to handle it. So I wanted to look at, to begin with, what is internal conflict? Why is it so present for many people and why is it that it's a challenge in terms of being able to handle it in our everyday lives and how it affects us? It's a psychological struggle and it causes emotional turmoil, moral dilemmas and personal challenges. It also affects us mentally and emotionally. And it also affects our behavioural struggles as well in terms of how we physically respond, in terms of how we respond to others, ourselves, and situations. It can cause indecision in our lives, and it can also cause guilt. Now, when we have conflicting desires about something that we need to do, it causes the internal to conflict itself. So if we want to do something, but we feel that it's not appropriate because it's not PC or friends or our colleagues or family will be thinking that it's inappropriate to take that course of action, then we might be conflicted internally in terms of doing it the way that we are meant to be seen to be doing something rather than how we feel we want to do it. And this will cause that inner conflict, and we are naturally wanting to please others. We are naturally wanting to be liked, to be approved of in terms of not upsetting the status quo. And naturally, especially when we're in a working environment or within our families, we want to make sure that we are towing the line at the same time as being ourselves. And when we have delicate matters, delicate situations, or situations that cause some challenge in terms of values and beliefs and other people's values and beliefs and how they put those values and beliefs onto you, and then you take them on, this is where the internal conflict can reside. This is a human experience. This internal conflict is something that everybody experiences. Even monks experience internal conflict because it's whatever we're seeing and experiencing on the outside and how we respond to it internally. So the types of conflict, and there are many, and I want to look at cognitive dissonance. This is something that has been talked about quite regularly in recent times. Cognitive dissonance is when we have a belief about something or a value about something. So for instance, and I'll give you a really good example, I have a belief that I prefer to treat the body, to treat my own personal health from an alternative capacity. So looking at issues and problems as they arise and dealing with them rather than suffering the external pain or the external challenges of using pharmaceutical medical products. And I've been like that and been living like that since 1988. When I was joined Holland & Barrett as a manager, a health food retailer. And so I learned another way. And that makes me a little bit odd in terms of the fact that I have different education, different knowledge, different understandings of what else there is, what are the choices. So I have different information so that I'm making other choices. And so the natural thing for most people to do, especially as far as their health, is to seek medical intervention to treat the symptom that they're experiencing with a pharmaceutical product. Now, when you do that, it can cause side effects. And so from my perspective, I would prefer not to have the side effects and treat the cause, the root cause as to why the symptom has occurred. And that's the way that I've been living for over 3 decades now. And with that causes some challenges for other people, especially if there's something that I'm complaining about, like an ache and pain or a headache, that they would naturally consider that I would have a pharmaceutical medical chest of painkillers and the normal paraphernalia that you would expect people to have. And I don't. And I don't because it's not where I live. So I have, and others have, a cognitive dissonance with me in terms of my choices medically of how I choose to treat different symptoms and different things that happen into my life. So rather than looking at the blame and game, and rather than being in that place of wanting to justify, I will go into what's the root cause of this symptom or this experience, and I will work through it. So I'm actually working very hard, and life is much more challenging for me, but then I don't have that cognitive dissonance about my personal health, and I don't have that cognitive dissonance about what I will put in my body and what I won't. Now, there are many people that have cognitive dissonance when they don't believe, even when evidence is put in front of them. It is very difficult for them to believe and to take on board that anybody else would intentionally harm them or would intentionally do them any hurt or cause them problems. And this is particularly looking at, for instance, for the governments or for the wider economy, that there's no expectation that our pharmaceutical world would do harm. And this is something that many people have a dissonance on, that they just cannot believe. And my perspective from that is that it's impossible from their belief structure to believe. And believe is be lie. That's how it breaks down. Be lie that anyone would, in such high powers of authority, do anything to harm anybody else. Now, I don't have any judgments. This is very global, but there has been cognitive dissonance, and facts have emerged about situations and events and circumstances in recent times, and there are still a lot of people in a cognitive dissonance. And that is because it's just impossible to believe that a lie could be that big and that harmful. And so even when evidence is presented to them, they would still not believe, because it would be too big a deal to agree that they've been taken in by a lie. And so cognitive dissonance is something that's huge, and it goes right the way through our establishments, so governments, education, the medical world, our religious environments. So it's places where we hold a lot of high regard. And even in families, if there's any challenges in families, we will tend to keep quiet if there is something that we just can't believe is happening. The welfare state, places such as care homes where there's maltreatment of patients, we just cannot believe that that would be possible, and yet these types of things are happening. So cognitive dissonance causes an internal conflict, and that internal conflict can be hugely challenging in terms of our emotional state, our physical state, in terms of and our mental state, in terms of the fact that we may get very anxious about situations because we cannot believe it can be true. And yet there's been exposés on TV, expose dramas and documentaries where patients have been very poorly treated or abused in care homes. And it's not something that we as a society believe should be happening. And so we believe that the people will be going into these types of care homes to be looked after. And so it causes that internal conflict in terms of, how is this possible? It's cognitive dissonance, and it is rife, and it's very big in some people because they're very in the institutionalization of whatever they've been told. And there was a cliche a long time ago, obviously it's been very much hijacked now, is that if it's in the news and if it's printed in the newspapers, it must be true. And now there's been a lot of controversy on news articles and controversy on things that are in print that have become not true and deemed as to be completely inaccurate in terms of their reporting. So let's look at emotional conflict. Emotional conflict is when there may be some situations, such as a bereavement, for instance, where we've lost a close family member, or we've lost a very dear person that's very dear to us. And when we lose that person, there is a grieving process. What about if you're working for a company and you still have to brush yourself down and go back into work the next day or the week later, and you have to carry on as if nothing's happened? And yet we can't, and we don't. It changes us. When there is a change emotionally in our lives, it's very difficult to just drop everything emotionally in terms of what's going on in our lives and carry on as if nothing's happened. And there is a cliche and a meme that's been going around, and I don't quite know where it's come from, but it's a keep calm and carry on. And I'm seeing it on mugs and tea towels and shirts and all sorts of things. And the memes are, sort of rife on social media. Keep calm and carry on. And what that's really saying is, no matter how emotional or upset or anxious you are, just keep calm and carry on. Forget it and carry on. And that's not good for you in terms of your emotions, and it's not good for anybody that's around you, and it's certainly not good for your own personal, physical, emotional, and mental well-being. So it is okay to be not okay, is what I'm saying. And this is why we have emotional conflict. Certainly in the UK, we are known to have a British stiff upper lip. We're known to keep calm and carrying on despite or whatever is happening. We carry on. And this causes all sorts of challenges physically, emotionally, mentally, and behaviourally when we are not feeling that we are able to express how we truly feel and think. And also it will bring us a feeling of internal struggle. And the internal struggle is something that's going on internally. It's like a whole big soap opera and a movie that's going on upstairs in the mind that no one else is privileged to, no one else hears, and no one else understands what your internal struggle is and what you're talking or not talking about and what is difficult and not difficult and why you're not doing something and why you're behaving in the way that you are. We are very much a society now of massive media and lots of communication from all sorts of avenues. When I was growing up, when you left work, work was at work. And now if you are in a job, the job doesn't end because they still have your contact number, they still have your phone number, and so then they can contact you anywhere at any time, no matter what you're doing, even first thing very early in the morning or late at night. And this causes some challenges and some internal conflict for many people, especially if they feel that they're not able to have good, clear boundaries in terms of their working environment if they're in a paid employed occupation. So this creates some moral and ethical dilemmas when there is this internal conflict of right and wrong. It can be blurred. Rights and wrongs. What's right for one person might be wrong for another. What's wrong for one person might be right for another. We are all human and we're all here having a human experience. But can you hear already I've brought up lots of different conflict situations. And really what's happening here is that this conflict is internal. It's not something that somebody is hearing and saying and having that conversation with you. It's an inner dialogue of conflict. It's an inner thinking conflict or an inner feeling. And it will affect our self-identity in terms of how we show up or how we would prefer to show up versus our true identity. And I remember in corporate, there was a certain way that you had to show up, a certain uniform that you had to wear, a certain code of conduct that you had to have, and a certain way to speak to people, and a certain way to behave in boardroom meetings or in meetings. And when I was in corporate, we didn't have the structures in place then of the mobile phone epidemic of everybody being on their phones. Some corporations, they ask you to turn off your phone when you're in meetings, but very often people are looking at their phones and messaging and not being present within the meeting. And one of the things that I feel that being the phone situation is that it makes us look important. It makes us look busy. So it's almost like we're saying we're very important and we're very busy, and I'm just being here because I have to be here, and I'm also busy with other things and other people. So how we show up is not always how we truly are in terms of our personal identity. We might be trying to gain approval, trying to please, or trying to be what other people expect us to be, rather than being our true selves. And when we're like that and we're being something that we're not truly feeling and being internally, so our personal identity, we are then feeling a conflict. So can you see these conflicts will occur at any time and in most aspects of our lives? And this internal conflict can create huge challenges in many aspects and in different parts of our lives. Values can be very unclear when you are having an internal conflict. If you, for instance, have a value on timing and you're always arriving even before time, and somebody in a meeting or a colleague always arrives late, and what I mean by late is after the time that you were expected to be there, after the time that they should have showed up, this can cause for some people a value conflict, that they have a value on timekeeping and they have a value on being respectful of your own time and other people's. And if somebody is not showing up on time and consistently late and not prepared, that can create an internal conflict, because that other person is not aware that you have that as a value: timekeeping, being punctual, being on time, being ready. Some people arrive and they're not ready, or they're answering calls, or they're texting messages, or responding to emails in your time. This can cut across in terms of a value that if you've set aside an hour to be with someone and they are on their phone or doing something else, or talking about other things that were not relevant to the time of your meeting and to the relevance of your meeting up, then that can cause an internal conflict. And this is when you know if you've hit a value. And this is something that many people are not aware of, what their values are. And I've done quite a number of different trainings where I've looked at and explored my personal values. And one of my personal values is professionalism. And so I can get very irritated and very conflicted when I see or experience a situation where somebody's being unprofessional, or when something is not being done the way that it should be done, in terms of looking at doing the whole thing rather than just parts of a job. And I can get very upset, very conflicted, and I'm the one in the struggle, because that for me is a personal value conflict. And I didn't even realize I had it until I did some training on it. And this was something that was highlighted to me. Why do I get upset when people are just not professional? When they're, they're in a professional environment, they're in a professional job, and yet they show up half-heartedly, or they show up unprofessionally in terms of their contribution. And it really used to irritate me. And then I realized that professionalism, through my study and my training, my consciousness exploration, that professionalism is a value. And so I will always show up professionally. But the problem is with values is when you have a value like that, there is also the other side, the opposing side of that, of expectation. Expecting the other person to have the same value, or to value your value of professionalism. And the world just isn't like that. And many people aren't prepared. they're not professional, they don't arrive on time, they haven't got a clue what they're doing, they haven't sorted out what they need to sort out, and you're on the other side getting conflicted, feeling a frustration and an internal struggle, because you know that you have done a lot of work to prepare, and that internal struggle is, well, why haven't they? Why haven't they sorted that out before? Why didn't they think about doing that? Why are they just now doing it? And this is because the value that you place on preparation and professionalism is not the same, or isn't a value for that other person. So my invitation for you is to give them compassion and give them advice if they're not ready or they're not prepared, or give them the benefit of your knowledge of how long it does take, or how long something initially takes to make sure that you're ready. Have you ever been in a situation where your colleague is always late and always unprepared and doesn't have the right things in place, and so then they don't show up well? And it's not on you. Them not showing up well is on them. And so my invitation for you is to breathe, to pause, and not take on that conflict. Because if you want to show up professionally, then that's okay, but other people might not. And they're the ones that are looking unprofessional. And I'm just giving an example of one of my values. And it shows up when somebody has a value, because if somebody has a value, they will become almost irrational, almost argumentative, as why hasn't this been done? Why is this like this? Or why hasn't that been sorted out? And there's a lot of a why, and how can this just not be right? And there will be an antagonism and a frustration and an anxiousness about something not being how you think or feel it should be. You've hit a value. And so just look in your life at where you are getting offended and upset and frustrated, and other people are saying, I don't understand what your problem is. What's the matter? I've not done anything. I've not done anything to offend you. I don't really get why you're so upset. Then you know you've hit a value. And, I've mentioned a couple: professionalism, timekeeping. There's also values on how we give and receive love, how we give and receive gifts, how we give and receive time with each other and other people, how we give ourselves to others. Some people will prefer to give their all to you and be totally present, and some people are with you when they're on their phones or they're distracted. And that might be a personal value for you. So look at what and where in your life you are frustrated, and where you are feeling irrational about somebody else's behaviours and somebody else's responses. And this is where you will find where your values are. So when we feel conflicted, it might be because your values are unclear, or you're not aware of your values until you hit them. And then you will know you have a value on that. Priorities. Your priorities might be different from somebody else's, and this can cause an internal conflict. Social pressure to perform, to show up, social pressure in terms of expectation, to do something or to not do something, can cause internal conflicts. Feeling the ability or non-ability to fit in. As humans, we are in our external environment a lot of the time. And in our external environment, we are really wanting to fit in, to belong. I remember when I was very young, always being part of, ever since I was young, being part of communities, groups, membership organisations. And I've always been the same. I've always needed or wanted to belong to different friendship circles, different groups, different institutions, different organisations. And even from the age of 5, I sought out community groups, church groups, just places where I could belong and that is a very human instinct to want to belong. And so if you don't feel that you're fitting into the environment, to the group, to the organization, to the community that you're in, this can cause an internal conflict. If you have traumas, if you have an internal trauma of something that may have happened when you were very young, a child, in adolescence, if you were attacked, or if you were mugged, or if you were in a role that caused you some internal traumas that you had to handle, that then you didn't feel or express and deal with the unexpressed and undealt with emotion, this can be buried deep down and create a trauma within. And when things are unresolved from past experiences, this can create an internal conflict. So when we are feeling that we may fail, fear of failure, that's something that many people feel, and some people feel a fear of success. When they are successful, how are they going to cope with the upsurge of people needing your time? So fear of success as well as fear of failure or fear of judgment. These things can cause internal conflict. It manifests in our everyday life. What I've just outlined just is the tip of the iceberg. And how it can affect us in terms of our own behaviours is procrastination. We will consider thinking and mulling over something before we do it so that we don't make a mistake or we don't get seen to have made a mistake. And so it can bring out perfectionism, because we don't want to make anything wrong. We want to do it right. I frequently say to people when I'm being given a task to do that's new, I just want to make sure that I've read everything and I understand everything so that I can do this, so I can go ahead. So if I'm faced with something new, I have to really go around it and research it and make sure that I'm comfortable with it so I don't make a mistake. And so the conflict is that I don't want to make a mistake and I want to show up as appropriate and getting it right. And so that can be the behavior behind that can be procrastination and perfectionism. It can also create indecisiveness, and it can create a stress and anxiety about thinking about future things. What about if I don't do this? If I get that wrong? If I get this wrong? If this doesn't work? So future thinking about what hasn't happened can create anxiety. And on top of that, it can create a struggle of overthinking. Yes, overthinking. I have many people that speak to me in terms of their initial call and consultation and say, I can't stop my mind. I'm constantly thinking. I can't shut it down. And then in the next breath, they say, but isn't that normal? Isn't everybody like that? And my response to that is, no, they're not. But when you are living in that space of overthinking and overanalyzing and being in a whole big soap opera and a movie in your mind, the overthinking can take over how you are really feeling and experiencing life. And it can leave you feeling very detached. It can make struggles in relationships. It can change and create challenges and internal conflict, as well as external conflict within your communication. And it can leave you feeling stuck. It can leave you feeling almost like you're doing 2 steps forward and then 2 steps backwards, 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards, 1 step forward, 3 steps backwards. I call that treading treacle. Actually not moving forward and always constantly on the back foot of trying to move forward and yet finding that you are moving forward and yet you're moving backwards too. So the impact of internal conflict can create chronic stress. It can create emotional and mental well-being conflicts within you as a person. And the mental conflicts are overthinking, stress, anxiety, and even for some, if they're focused on past things and past events, depression. It can create anxiety and burnout. None of this is very good in terms of your emotional and mental health, but it can create challenges within your physical health as well. It can be psychosomatic in terms of headaches. I want to mention this because I've been recently, and I've only just finished doing my accounts, bookkeeping records for my bookkeeper for final accounts. And I've been very focused on the fine detail of the receipts of the paperwork, dates, amounts, and getting the right information in the right Excel spreadsheet. And it can cause, when you're very focused on something, which I'm not very often, I'm very much in meditation, so I'm very, very much in that space of being very open and calm in the mind. But when you have an overthinking and an over-focused mind in terms of these internal conflicts, it can create headaches, and it can, for some, create migraines, and it will create fatigue. And the reason it creates these things, the headaches and migraines, is because your head is full of thoughts. It can't get rid of them, and it's literally aching with the amount of thoughts that are there. Fatigue. When you are in your mind and living in your mind in terms of your everyday thinking, overthinking, analysing, and being very much in the mind, it will create a disconnection with the body. And this will create a fatigue, a tiredness, because the energy isn't going through the body, it's getting stuck. As you're breathing, you'll be breathing in a shallow way, and you're feeding the mind. And so this will create a perpetual overthinking, overanalyzing, and a perpetuation of feeling tired all the time. So does this sound like you? Does this sound like something that you are challenged with? Does this sound like something that you are struggling with? Internal conflict can really create some challenges, and it will affect you in every aspect of your life if you let it. And the first thing to do is to move through that internal conflict, is to look at personal growth opportunities. To become self-aware will create transformation. When you are aware that you've hit a value, when you are aware that there's an internal conflict, when you are aware that you are trying to be and show up as something that is not your true authentic identity, your true authentic self, it will create your internal conflict. Look at where you are feeling conflicted, and with either a good friend or somebody, a therapist or a mentor, look at finding the root cause of your personal internal conflict. Journaling and reflection are very good ways to move through that thinking process, and getting it down on paper can help you when you reread what you've written to move through that conflict. When you clarify your values, you can align your decisions, and you can find your core values through alignment of your decisions and your long-term goals. Noticing yourself, self-compassion, and embracing your imperfections, self-forgiveness, is a key to moving out of internal conflict. Seeking perspective with a therapist or friend or mentor will truly help you move through the conflict that you experience internally. If you're in overwhelm or in overwhelm of thoughts, I strongly invite you to look at meditation or mindfulness exercises, and that will transform your internal conflict into growth. Reframe your struggle into opportunities and self-discovery. And more importantly, resilience and adaptability will give you a resolution of your internal conflicts. I invite you to reflect on your internal conflicts, and you will find a place of inner peace. But remember, it's a journey. It's not a destination. Thank you for your attention and your interest. Please subscribe to USA Global TV and Radio. You can find all of my Talking Heads episodes on the playlist Talking Heads 2022, 2023, 2024, and I believe there should be a list now for 2025. So if you look for my name and the playlist Talking Heads, you can find all of my Talking Heads under those relevant years. Please do reach out to me if I may be of service to you, if I may be able to help you in terms of your internal conflict or anything that you may be struggling with. You can find me and follow me on Facebook and LinkedIn. They're my preferred platforms. And you can also drop me an email on nomorestress@live.co.uk, or call me if you're international +44. If you're local, 07523 120 189. It has been my pleasure to deliver this talk to you, The Battle Within, How Internal Conflict Shapes Our Lives. Thank you for listening. Always feel comfortable that you can reach out if I may be of service to you. Namaste.
Ever dreamed of hosting your own TV show, sharing your story with a global audience? Now's your chance to shine. At USA Global TV and Radio, we make it easy for you to create, host and broadcast your very own TV show. Whether you're a storyteller, entrepreneur or industry expert, we help you bring your vision to life. With our exclusive interview, live streaming and podcasting training, you'll gain the skills and confidence to captivate your audience. Our global platform ensures your voice is heard worldwide. Join our community of creators who are already making an impact, one show at a time. Step into the spotlight. Host your own TV show on USA Global TV and Radio. Book your discovery call today at usaglobaltv.com. Copyright 2025 USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. To learn more, visit usaglobaltv.com. In a world full of noise, misunderstandings and interruptions, master the art of listening with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is the listening mentor of USA Global TV and Radio and the Amazon #1 best-selling author of Mastering the Power of Elevated Listening. Elevate your listening. Elevate your life. Join a global learning experience in person or via Zoom. Reserve your spot today. usaglobaltv.com/book-your-session or drjacqueline.thinkific.com. Join Dr. Kerbeck's listening courses or hire her to unlock deeper connections and authentic conversations. Have you ever felt unheard? Like your words float into a void, leaving you invisible and disconnected? How about feeling judged, when assumptions overshadow your truth, leaving you misunderstood and defensive? And then there's that moment when someone offers solutions you never asked for, dismissing your feelings and leaving you more frustrated than before. It doesn't have to be this way. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the listening mentor, understands. She's here to help you reclaim your voice, build stronger connections, and create meaningful conversations that inspire understanding and mutual respect. Through her groundbreaking books, online and in-person courses, and interactive workshops, you'll learn how to navigate life's most challenging interactions. Discover the power of elevated listening and transform how you communicate. Master setting boundaries and asking permission to protect your peace. Learn to recognize and release judgment, fostering empathy and true connection. Dr. Kerbeck also offers personalized coaching, one-on-one or group sessions, designed to fit your unique needs. Whether in person or virtually on StreamYard, her guidance will empower you to thrive. You don't have to struggle alone. The path to deeper connections and better relationships start here. Visit drjacqueline.com or usaglobaltv.com. Join a global community of empowered listeners and transform your life, one meaningful conversation at a time. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is the listening mentor. Start your journey today. Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.